Greetings all. I'm just going to give it a few more minutes for folks to get here. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Okay, we're going to get started. Thank you all for being here. This is going to be an interactive section where we're going to give you opportunity to ask questions about our upcoming mini grant opportunity. So I hope to see your beautiful faces, but also understand not wanting to show up on another Zoom call. So as long as you just speak up and speak out when you have questions, that will be great. My name is Morgan Boydston. I am the Human Services Manager at OCED. And so if we can go around, I think there's enough people in here that we have time to do introductions, and you can just say your name and what organization you're from, and we can popcorn it. You can go how in whatever order you'd like to.
I'll go first. My name is Suzanne or Sue Upton. I work for Peace Neighborhood Center as their development director.
Hi, I'm Ruth Habrecht. Sorry, I don't have my camera on right now. I am the founder for Hutan, and we develop health programs and wellness programs for children 2 to 8 years old.
Hi, my name is Anisha Solomon. I'm the Vice President of Programs at Unified HIV Health and Beyond.
Hi, I'm Laura Seyfried. I'm the director at the Community Resource Center in Manchester. We're a small community-based human service agency.
See a few others. Jump on in there, folks.
Hello, my name is Bradley Swartz. I'm the founder and executive director of Devota Advocacy Services. We do mortgage and tax foreclosure prevention. Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Hi, I'm Jeannie Ross, the Deputy Director of Private Way. We work with the formerly incarcerated.
And I'm the executive director, and our cornerstone is it is mentoring and wraparound services that are individualized. And I'm going to popcorn it to Tyrone to help with the awkwardness.
Yes, my name is Tyrone Bridges, if you guys could hear me. I am the founder and program director of Behavior Workshop, a behavior modification program offering alternative lifestyle to at-risk youth in Washtenaw County. And that's my puppy in the background making noises, sorry.
Hi, my name is Gloria, and I'm an intern with Dexter Senior Center.
Hi, I'm Kathy Holman with Washtenaw ACA. We do direct advocacy for people with developmental disabilities.
We just have a few people left, and Teresa, you can jump on in and say who you are.
Hi, good morning. Teresa Gelati. I'm the director of the Washtenaw County Office of Community and Economic Development. Thanks for being on here. Sorry for being a couple minutes late. Happy to see you.
Hi, my name is Emma Rita Oliver, and I work with Tyrone Bridges with the Behavior Workshop.
Just a few more folks left. I think I see you, Katie.
Hi, I'm Katie Kazakos. I'm with Aiden Milan.
Awesome. And then I see one more person who's calling in on a phone. Would you like to introduce yourself? Cool. We'll get back to you. So, again, my name is Morgan Boydston. I am the Human Services Manager at the Office of Community and Economic Development. And I just welcome you here to this meeting. So we are going to talk about our mini grant opportunity that we have that is a part of our new Human Services Partnership funding. This is one of 3 funding opportunities. The first we've already done, which was the safety net grants. This is our mini grant opportunity. And then our next opportunity will be the high impact grants. So this is the opportunity where we wanted to bring everybody together and ask us any questions that you might have on what it takes to apply to the county, to our county funds. We acknowledge that the process can be really cumbersome and it can be hard and it can be confusing and it can be rigid. And so while these funds are specifically for smaller organizations, we know that some of you might not have had either opportunity to apply to funds in this way or have and have not been successful. So before the actual formal RFP is released, we have the permission to answer any and all questions you might have. Once that RFP is formally released and it's out and you all receive it, we are no longer able to ask individual questions or really specific questions about how to apply to these funds. So because we want to do this work with equity in mind, we know how you do equity is just as important as the outcome, the equitable outcome you're looking for. So we wanted to give you the opportunity to ask and provide space for any and all questions that you have so that this really can be as equitable as equitable as possible, given the constraints that we are under. So before I show you the RFP and kind of work through it and show you the different sections, et cetera, are there any questions you have out the gate? Any problems you've had if some of you have applied to county funds before that you've hit barriers or obstacles that you would want to bring up before we get to the specifics of this one?
No, we need a separate section for it.
A separate section for what? For the obstacles?
For all the obstacles, I got a whole bunch of them, trust me.
Oh, we want to hear them. This is the section.
No,
this is
y'all
the
ain't
time.
ready for it. Y'all ain't ready for it.
Okay.
I'm gonna be nice.
So we have some polls ready to go for you to kind of answer some of the or to kind of get a grasp of who's in the space and what are some of the areas that you might have.
All right, I just sent that out. So hopefully you're seeing it on the screen. We just wanted to see of this particular group, how many of you might have applied before? You know, if you have people that help write grants or you're just having to figure it out. And then whether or not you're an official nonprofit, because that's sometimes you might need somebody to partner with to be eligible. So those are some quick questions if you want to just take a moment to answer those, and then I'll share the results here.
Had a question. Do all the RFPs, like we're going to apply, we're also applying for an RFP for reentry services through the prosecutor's office, and do all the county grants have the same basic format so that if we gather certain documents about our insurance and all those other things, we can use that part over and over, basically? Is there a similar format?
Sorry, yes. So those insurance documents, yes. What that's actually being asked, no, of course, but yes.
Yeah, but the basic structural stuff.
Mhm. I'm hesitant to say yes, because it also depends on the funds in which the RFP is coming from, you know? So I'm assuming so, yes.
Okay,
In general,
in
right?
general.
Mhm.
Right, like if you're a nonprofit, you would have to share that you're formally, structured as a nonprofit in that documentation. You might have to provide some financial reporting so people can take a look at that. There might be information about your organizational structure. Yeah, and those insurance requirements. So some of that stuff will be the same, but then really like Morgan said, there's different funding sources, there's different departments, so they may shift a little bit around the question.
Okay, thank you.
All right, well, thank you for answering this whole question. So it's good to know that there's some folks here with some experience, but also some folks who haven't. So hopefully this will be a helpful session for you all, and looking through, how to manage, basically putting in a proposal for county funding. And that some of you maybe have some grant writing support and some of you will be doing it yourself. And it does look like that most everybody is a nonprofit. So we don't have to worry about necessarily partners, but we can talk a little bit about that as well. So thank you for answering the question. All right, Morgan, back to you, and let me know if you want me to share the form with you at some point.
Thanks. I actually pulled it up and have it to share. Oh, that's not right. That's the invite.
Actually, I see that Tyrone has a question real quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't want to interrupt and I didn't want to get ahead of y'all's presentation, but as far as the insurance part of it, you guys, these grants are focused on smaller nonprofits that may have been hurt during the pandemic, that wasn't doing anything too much on a larger scale. Is that something that the county is willing to work with the nonprofits that are small on? And I don't know if y'all might have answered that question, but help us with the insurance part of it.
When you say help with the insurance, you mean actually obtain insurance?
Yes, because our nonprofit has been starving for funding. Teresa, you know, and a lot of other people know, for years, but we still have maintained to do things in the community without funding. But I think now the doors are opening for new funding and eyes are on everybody. I think it's time for us to really apply for funding, but some of the requirements that you guys might have, we might fall short of some small requirements that we might need help. And that's what you guys should be here for, to help us get that so we can maintain it. Or, I mean, we got a track record. Teresa, she knows it. We got a track record. We've been in existence since 1994, and we have not received anything over $5,000 from nobody.
Yeah. So
we do.
Yes. So through this process is exactly the type of organization we're looking for. So what that means is that we might be still asking for that information, but that information won't necessarily preclude you from getting these resources. So this is that opportunity.
Awesome. Thank you. I'm sorry for being long-winded.
That's okay. That's okay.
And that said, we might not have the answers yet, but that's what we're trying to commit to, is if it is like, yes, you're the perfect person, but it's the insurance, well, we're going to try and figure that piece out. So I just want to add on to what Morgan was saying there. Thanks for bringing that up, Tyrone.
Yeah, no problem. And we could be instrumental in getting ahead of that and get that insurance taken care of ourselves if we know, in advance too. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to take you through this. It's not released yet. Something could potentially change in the meantime, so don't hold us to what's in this document, but we did want to make sure that you kind of had opportunity to see it and ask questions before we get to the formal parts of this process when we're no longer available to answer those individual questions. So if many of you haven't, let's make this go away. If you haven't seen what an RFP looks like from the county, this is the front page of it. We ask that when you turn it in with the signature on the bottom. Our procurement office actually, you'd be surprised how many people don't turn it in and then how it slows down the process. Technically, they're supposed to say if there isn't a cover letter with it, then they can deny it. We have a really great woman that works in our procurement office, and she often works with folks and goes back around to collect this cover letter. But we do need this in order for you all to submit for funding. You'll all, in the beginning of it, we'll have outlaid some background information about this funding opportunity. For this particular opportunity, we're looking at mini grants to be able to fund and support work that addresses the root causes of inequities in our community, which are racism, poverty, and trauma. So that's really important for this, and that the funds have to be going through that. It has to be a systemic effort to address racism, poverty, and trauma. As long as you can explain how your work ties to that, then you have a really competitive application. If you can't explain how your work ties to those systemic inequities, racism, poverty, and trauma, then it would be scored more, it would be lower scored, lower scored. However you would say that. And this is going to be reviewed by community members. So staff also won't have any, won't be scoring these applications, and we won't really be providing much feedback to the community members that are scoring these applications. We really want to make sure that we're not including any bias or any opportunity to skew the results in any which way, because we have relationships with some of you. So make sure when you're writing this, it's really clear, it's really readable, so folks can really understand what it is you hope to do and how you hope to do it, and the results you hope to see. And that, again, it addresses the racism, poverty, and trauma. So that's that root cause analysis, racism, poverty, trauma piece. There's going to be a rubric that we're going to be providing in this application when it's released, so you'll know exactly what we're scoring and how we're scoring it. In some ways, if you read it really carefully, it also kind of describes what we're looking for when it's being scored. So again, that's our attempt to make it as clear and transparent about this process, and so that you all can have a really good competitive application. Some of the questions that we're asking you are just really baseline, your agency's name, description, mission, vision. And this is when we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of this. So we are really hoping that at least 60% of these funds available go to BIPOC or underrepresented community leaders in Washtenaw County. So in Washtenaw County, that's BIPOC folks, that could be differently abled folks. Those are who we're prioritizing as leaders. That doesn't mean anybody else can't receive these funds. It just means that we're making sure to prioritize and uphold BIPOC and underrepresented leaders in Washtenaw County. So we are asking questions to kind of get at that. These are not mandatory questions. You don't have to answer them. But again, it's for us to meet that goal. We also are going to ask you program description questions, the name, the service you plan to provide, what staff and what is your staffing structure. So we're really interested to see what are the different ways in which work is being done in the community. It could be very traditional model when you have an ED and et cetera, and board chairs, or it could be a really non-traditional model where you have kind of a fluid leadership style where you have multiple folks on the same level, but all are leaders in the equal right. We don't care what structure you follow, just as long as you can explain it to us and it's very clear. Again, we're looking to see what are other models out there that do really great quality work, and we want to support that work that's being done. We want to know about the positive impacts of your program. We want to know who you are, who your program is aiming to serve. We want to know about your agency's wide equity approach. So what are the things you're doing to provide equity across your agency and across your services? We want to know your strengths, and we want to know your areas of growth. And we just want to know how much this is going to cost, right? Or not how much, but where do you want to put the cost to? So we're giving anyone that is receiving funds will get a flat $40,000 grant. You can use those grants in any ways that you need to, as long as it's addressing the root causes of inequities, racism, poverty, and trauma. And it clearly shows how you're doing that. The only caveat on these funds is that, and I think it's in this version, but there is a 5% overhead limit. So if you are an organization that's working with a fiduciary, or you are an organization that's part of a larger organization but aren't funded by that larger organization, then you would only be able to provide 5% of this grant to the fiduciary or that larger organization. We put that in there because we've heard a lot that folks who are within larger organizations but aren't funded by that organization are often taxed pretty high for the fiduciary services. So we wanted to make sure to protect you all and the grants so that they go to what you're hoping them to go to. And the only other thing I'll add about this so far, and open it up to as many questions as you have and would like to ask, is that we are targeting organizations that have an annual revenue of $1 million or less. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing this. And this is time for you to ask any and all questions you might have about what you're thinking about applying for, about this process, et cetera, et cetera.
Can you clarify one question for me? My name is Emma Rita. On your root cause, I'm sorry, I got background. On your root cause, you said you wanted to address racism, poverty, and trauma?
Correct.
Is that all? You have to address all three of them?
No, you do not.
Okay, that was my question.
Yeah. I see a brighter way than Tyrone.
Oh, y'all gonna pick on me today. If y'all could do that, I'd be appreciated. Maybe just a question. I know you said 100,000 and below.
$1 million.
$1 million and below.
Mm-hmm.
Is there ever a grant available for a category like 10,000 and below? Because some of our programs that we have, we don't need to be fishing for that, that type of funding, because we don't require that. Basically, I mean, we serve from our heart. We ain't getting no pension and no salary or no this, that, and the other.
So yeah, just the clarity, these grants are $40,000 or baseline. The $1 million is the revenue.
Gotcha. I'm sorry. I'm a little LD, so that's why I had an assistant.
No, you're not. You're fine.
I'm telling the damn truth.
I like those questions. Way to be clear, though. Right away, yeah.
I just had a question. I know what usually the traditionally underserved populations are. One of the things that A Brighter Way has done since its inception is it's always been headed by somebody who's formerly incarcerated. Now, that falls into that category.
It would in my eyes, yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. I like your eyes.
Are there any other questions?
Hi, this is Bradley with Devota.
Yeah.
I hate to be that guy, but
Do that guy. Let's do it.
My Zoom stopped right as I was going to hear the answer to the insurance question, and I didn't hear the full question either. We have OE insurance. I want to make sure that that's okay.
What is OE?
Errors and omissions.
Oh, okay. So,
sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, sorry. Let me let you finish.
That was all. That's the insurance we have, and of course, right as I'm like, that's the question I wanted to hear.
Yes. So we are going to make sure to do our best to advocate on these smaller organizations, acknowledging that you're not going to have all those pieces, or not exactly the pieces that the county procurement process is looking for. So that does not preclude you from this opportunity, and we'll do our best in the back end to make sure that this happens for you.
Oh, thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions? I think, was it Suzanne? I think I saw. Yeah.
Yeah, this is actually a question to piggyback on a question someone just posed, and it isn't necessarily for Peace Neighborhood Center. But in looking through the RFP, clearly you want program descriptions and other descriptions, but for really small nonprofits that are making it by the skin of their teeth, what I heard embedded in that question is lots of people, the people at that nonprofit might not be getting all that they need in terms of compensation. So if for small nonprofits that are focused very specifically on certain type of programming, is it fair, since we saw in the budget line salaries and other things, is it fair to seek capacity building within a specific directed program or service for staff that are providing that?
If you can make it clear that it addresses racism, poverty, and trauma on the systemic level, then yes.
Yeah, okay.
It would have to, that is the distinction. We acknowledge that it's people that are doing people work, right? It's not always
Right.
buying supplies or paying for some type of software or workbook that does this. So we
Right.
want to support the people, and it needs to be absolutely clear that the people are supporting systemic oppressions, inequities of racism, poverty, and trauma through the work that they're doing in the program.
Right. So, and apologies, I don't intend to change the meaning of your answer or to paraphrase, but that means that very small nonprofits that might not think their program costs 40,000, but if they're seeking capacity to hire an additional person to cover or serve more people, or to pay their people competitively for delivering that program and service, I can imagine a $40,000 ask really tiny small nonprofits could get to. Yes?
Correct, as long as the
Okay.
program is addressing root causes of inequity
Right,
around racism,
right.
poverty, and trauma. Yep.
Yep, okay, but I just think that there's smaller nonprofits and Peace Neighborhood Center doesn't necessarily fit the description of a tiny or small nonprofit, and we've been around for a while. But sometimes the struggle is making sure you've got quality people in place and you can pay those people.
Absolutely.
Right, thank you.
Tyrone, did you have another one?
Yes, ma'am. I'm speaking from one of them ones that run the organization that don't get paid. I've been doing this since 1994. Our program focused on bridging the digital divide amongst low-income people, the poor, disabled residents, and computer technology. Currently, we have 15 computers ready to donate to low-income families, but no monitors, no mice. Is there some type of way that you guys could work within you guys' organization or within the nonprofit spectrum that maybe the nonprofits could get connected so they could do other nonprofits needs assessment so they could help us maybe move these 15 computers to homes of poor people that need them? See what it is, it seems like to me, it's a miscommunication of the needs for us. So we reached out to a few nonprofits, they gave us ideas, but they never said, hey, we could help you guys. So if the nonprofits within the county, if we're doing God's work, helping people, through racism, the poverty, and also through trauma, shouldn't we all be working on a same level and even communication? Because I've tried to apply for certain nonprofits, but I guess I'm always coming in third because of my criminal conviction. But I do a great work.
So if
And
I
I'm done.
understand your question, you're saying, could this be an opportunity to bring nonprofits together to work together?
Yes.
So I think that's definitely a need that we've heard. I'm gonna be honest and transparent because that's the way that I do my leadership style, is that we have the same capacity issues that you all have, right? And so this definitely is the first time we have had this program. This is the first of its kind. We see a lot of visions and goals and where this can go, including building capacity across organizations, smaller nonprofits to do this work. That is definitely one of our next steps as we scale this up. For this particular iteration, we're just going to be providing grant funding and some supports around evaluation. And we acknowledge that some coordination support across nonprofits is needed, and we'll get there.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? And it looks like, Tyrone, you have family in this space, so maybe connect with Brighter Way.
I sure will.
Look at that, we did it. Are there any other questions that folks have?
Yeah, this is Kathy from ACA. Can you tell me who reviews the grants and how those folks are picked? And are the grants looked at with redacted information? Or is
Ooh,
all our
good
information there?
question. So I'm going to start with that last one, the redacted information, and then move on up. So in my experience as both writing RFPs and reviewing them, the redacted information in the end doesn't help organizations as much as one would assume, because then people fill in the gaps of assuming they should have done it differently or should have done it more. On the other hand, when I say differently or more, people pick out the edits or incorrections even more so when there's no name associated to it, because they make assumptions that based off of their own bias of what should have been there. On the flip end, when names are there, people tend to do the same and assume that because this person wrote this grant from this organization, they should have done a different or better job in how they wrote the grant. So it's the same outcome for different reasons. What we're going to do is make sure that the reviewers are trained around equity grant review so that they're eliminating or at least acknowledging that they do have a bias going into this work and doing their best to work around that bias. So we won't be eliminating or redacting names. And the reviewers are community members. We don't have them chosen yet, but we do have folks that have been interested in doing this work. There are folks that won't be necessarily connected to the organizations. There'll be folks that could be leading organizations. They could be folks that are just a part of or have received services. And there are folks that just live in community and are interested in providing feedback. So we try and did make the first round, the safety net grant round, really diverse folks of races and economic level and leadership levels. And so that'll be the plan for this round as well.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Are there any other questions? I'm going to check the chat to make sure I'm not missing anything. Oh, thank you for putting in Barrier Busters, Laura. Yes, it is another space where folks can connect and coordinate with one another. Are there any other questions? Awesome. So the next steps are, we will be releasing the RFP. Everyone that registered onto this, we have your email address, so we'll make sure that you're notified that the RFP is released. There will be not mandatory, but 2 meetings that you can attend to once you've the RFP is released and you have time to really look at them in detail and come to those meetings. One is during a day slot and one is during the evening slot. You'll see that in the RFP, which what the times of the meetings are, and you're more than welcome to come to that meeting. We won't be able to get as detailed as we can in this meeting, and that at that point, every question you ask would have to be documented and released for public to have access to. So any specific questions you have about your programs or what might be eligible specifically to your program, we might not be able to answer, but we will be able to answer in a more generalized fashion. Teresa put the timeline and the info sessions in the chat if you want to go to either of those. And the RFP will be available Monday for you all to look at. Thank you so much for coming. Teresa, did you have anything else that you wanted?
No, you got it all. Thanks. Great questions, all. I really appreciate you guys cutting to the chase and asking when you can. And we will do our best to answer the questions. Like Morgan said, we just have to answer them generally. So we couldn't speak to a specific agency and we'd have to share it with everyone. So thanks for taking advantage of this opportunity. And if you have anything to email us, do so today before we release the RFP on Monday so we could get back to you potentially. So I'll drop my email in here and feel free to reach out if anything else comes up before next week. Thank
you all.
Thank you, ladies, for hosting this wonderful event. Appreciate y'all service.
No problem.
Have a great day, everyone.
You
Thank you
too.
for the time.
You're welcome.